Hi, everyone, welcome back. Josh Peter here and Alex Goldman for From the Stands today, joined alongside the HEX flyweight champion, Cynthia Calvillo. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you. You're obviously just in Australia a little while ago, but how have things been since you've been back?
It's been going good. I've just, first of all, thanks for having me on. But everything's been going good. It felt really awesome to, go over to Australia and get that win. And I've just been resting a little bit. Like probably took about 3 weeks off just because my hands got a little jacked up. But other than that, I'm back to full-time training. So everything's going good.
Awesome. Well, it had been such a long time since you had fought in an organization not named the UFC. I believe the last time was 2017. So it'd been a number of years. What was the overall experience for you like coming down to Australia? Was this your first time in Australia, and how was your dealings with HEX overall?
Honestly, it was awesome. Like you said, it was a long time since the last time that, I fought for any other show outside of the UFC. So,
Mm.
I was impressed. Hex really took care of me. Everybody was awesome. Honestly, like I had a great time. Like I can't really complain about anything. If anything, the only things it's always like fight week normal stuff. When you run into like
Yeah.
little problems here and there. But overall, like if there was an issue at all, like Hex would like fix it right away. So it was awesome dealing with them. I think they're just like one of the best promotions out there for sure.
Yeah. Cynthia, I'm curious, you've trained at some of the best teams in the world, and, I'm curious sort of what's one thing that you've learned from sort of, each of the major teams, whether it's, Team Alpha Male, American Kickboxing Academy, Team Syndicate, that you feel has made you a better mixed martial artist?
I would say consistency. That's for, every athlete. Like it's important to stay consistent and always make sure that you take the time after a fight to advance and work on, on the things that you need to work on. Don't wait until you have a fight camp to work on the things that you got to work on because, you're going to run out of time. Like the camp for a fight should be specifically for you to be in shape and work for specific details. But, obviously, go over the tape of your fight, make sure you figure out what you're doing wrong and, start working on getting better at that. But of course, you also have to rest too. So I know there's a lot of us fighters, especially when I was younger, like I would fight and I'd be back in the gym by Monday, just sparring and, just getting the mix of it because I was just so excited. But that's always not the best thing. It's okay to like be active and stuff, but give yourself some time to recover because the hard work is just important as the recovery. So consistency for sure over time equals, results. So that's the one thing I think that has kept me in this game for a while now.
Absolutely. Cynthia, with your fight against Lisa, it had been a year and a half since you'd been inside the cage competing. Obviously, I know you've been training and you had a fight scheduled for April this year, but um, did you notice any differences in your body at all, giving your body a bit of a break and a year and a half off, I suppose, you know, full time competing, I suppose, so to put it. Did you notice any
Yeah,
differences with how your body felt, and did you feel better? I can imagine, giving your body some time would make your body feel better. Some people say ring rust, creeps in, but how did you feel overall?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I felt great. I would say that, because I had so much time in between fights, my body has been able to recover properly. And I know I've dealt with a lot of injuries before in the past, and I've always tried to train through them. And, I had to learn that the hard way that you got to let your body rest for it to recover properly. Otherwise the injuries just linger on forever. Um, but I felt great. I think, we've in this sport, like we've just pushed our bodies to the limit and like just cutting a crazy amount of weight. And I hope it changes. I'm not sure it will, but it's like for me, like it could be pretty dangerous for a lot of us, because we're in betweeners,
Yeah.
like the weight classes are every 10 pounds, and like for me, if there was a 120 weight class, that would be perfect for me, and
Yeah.
but 125s I do feel a lot healthier, but I do feel a little undersized. So I'm definitely going to be working and spending my time now that I moved up to 25s to getting stronger and putting on some more muscles and stuff. So before, when I'm at straw weight, usually the focus is like a lot of cardio, trying to make sure that I'm in a calorie deficit. And so now it's different. I don't have to be in a calorie deficit, and I mean, of course, towards once I get closer to the, during fight week and all that, you get the last couple pounds, you are in a little bit of a calorie deficit. But when I was fighting at 115, I was in a calorie deficit for like 10 to 12 weeks,
Wow.
because your body would just blow up from pushing yourself there. And then every time I would cut to that weight, my body would just like freak out. And then I would gain even more weight in between the fights. And so it just be over time became really hard to just continue to make that weight. So I feel like 125s, it's better for my brain, better for my body. We just got to be smarter, and definitely get a little bit bigger, but we got to, we can't just go in there and just bang and not have a game plan. So we have to be very strategic, because I know that some of these girls that I'm going to be fighting are going to be a lot bigger than me. So, and I definitely felt that when I fought Lisa, for sure, even though I was able to control her and stuff, she was pretty strong and she was big. So, definitely have to take that into account.
What's up, guys? It's Josh here from the stands. And look, I know you're in the middle of a good little interview that we're currently doing, but I want to take a second of your time just to give a quick little shout out to today's sponsor, TrainAid. Obviously, they're big supporters of us, like we are of them. And today they're sponsoring this video. And look, I want to let you guys know about a little product they do, their premium product, TrainAid Hydration. It's the best hydration formula on the market, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. And look, if you don't believe me, ask guys like Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski, Leon Edwards. You ever heard of these guys? I mean, they're the top athletes in the world. And they're all taking TrainAid Hydration. It really is the number one formula in the world for hydration. And in the summer months here in Australia, I mean, it's something that I think everyone should be taking. And TrainAid have been very nice to give us a discount code, a very healthy discount code as well. I mean, it's a nice little discount code. If you use the code FTS15 at the checkout, they will give you 15% off. We'll leave a link to their website in this description of this video, and yeah, check them out, guys. Please support them because they are supporting us. Cheers.
Yeah, definitely. You're just talking on that, then I'm curious, do you maybe regret not moving up sort of earlier in your career, given that obviously being in a calorie deficit to 10 to 12 weeks, that's going to take a toll on your recovery, how hard you can go in training, all these sort of aspects. So, I'm curious, do you maybe regret not going up to 125, a little bit earlier? Because, and again, obviously, a lot of things are out of your control. Weight cutting is, a very unfortunate reality of the sport.
Yeah, I think, well, honestly, my losses and what led to me ultimately getting cut is the weight miss and also having losses. And so the last time I'd missed weight before this last one was back in 2020. And Dana was like, maybe you should move up. And so then I ended up moving up to 125s, and I challenged the number one contender at flyweight, and I beat her. And it was a main event 5 round. And then after that, it was just like, I felt like I wasn't making the best decisions, and I feel like sometimes you think you're doing the right thing for yourself, but you're not. And I felt like maybe the fights that I had taken right after that main event fight, instead of letting my body like probably settle into that weight class, I went straight to the challenging the biggest, the
Yeah.
best ones
Yep.
in that division. And I never even fought the top five at a strawweight division. I went straight for the number one in the flyweight division in the UFC. And, I had shoulder surgery. I'd moved away because it was COVID. I ended up fighting Jessica Andrade like 9 months after I got my whole shoulder done, and I felt like, even though in my mind, because I'm not a wimp and I'm always like, I want to fight. I was always down to fight everybody. It's just like sometimes we're just like too hard headed, and I probably needed someone around me at the time that I could have probably should have talked to before making those decisions, And I think that it was just it was just a lack of like, I think it was a little bit of ego and just trying to get ahead of myself, and ultimately it cost me, because after that I just went on a huge losing streak. So I fought Jessica Andrade and I lost in the first round. Then they called me up for short notice and I broke my orbital in the first round. So then I was down and I was like, man, I was like in my head, I was like, I can't be fighting these big girls anymore. I was like, I'm taking too much damage. Like, these are my the only 2 times I've ever been finished or at that lost that way. I've never felt anything like
Yeah.
that. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to fight these big girls up here, in the flyweight division. And so I was like, I got to go back to strawweight. Like, just, hire the best nutritionist that you possibly can and, do that. And I was on my way to go do that. And then I got a fight and then that fell out. And then they're like, you want to fight Nina for her retirement fight? And I was like, Nina Nunez, Amanda Nunez's wife. So I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, but she wants to do it at 25. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll give it one more at 25. Lost at a split and then came back down finally. And I got to fight Lupi Godinez in a split as well. But I made weight for straw weight. And that was a hard one because I really thought that I felt like I won those last two and there were splits. And then I had the unfortunate event to trying to cut again to straw weight and I missed and I was cut from the UFC. So it's just been like crazy. It's like a lot of trying, and I kind of felt like I was like at the highest high. Getting into the UFC, I, jumped right straight into the top 10, and I obviously if I don't regret a lot, so, like the decisions that I made as far as like getting into UFC and getting right into the top 10. I think with my size, a lot of the girls were cutting around the same weight, but it was just really hard for me to cut those last like 2 to 3 pounds. And that's where I felt like that was more, I was equal. And, so I felt like, yeah, it was scary moving up to 25. Then I went back down and then I realized, it's not for me. And I'm honestly like, it's just embarrassing, like just missing weight, we try so hard and goes a lot into it. Those times that I've missed weight, I've like hired the best nutritionist and still miss weight. So it's not a lack of like trying and stuff. It's just weight cuts they're freaking tough. And I just have to, I've just made the decisions that I have to stay at 25s because I'll never miss at 25s. I just know I probably won't be as big as the other girls, which it's okay. I'll be David and they can be Goliath every time. So.
Yeah. Well, it would have given you some great confidence then to pick that win up over Lisa, considering she is a natural 125er, be it in the UFC or not. Knowing like you've just told us, the struggles you've gone through, knowing that going up and down and not knowing what to do a little bit, and knowing okay maybe they're too big for me at 125. I can imagine how much more that means to you now, knowing that. What you were sort of dealing with. So to get that win over Lisa, I can imagine it would have meant a lot, and really felt like you solidified yourself at that weight class now. Is there a plan now for you to defend the HEX title? Do you have any plans to do that? Is there something else you're looking at the moment? What is your sort of, focus in the meantime whilst you're recovering?
Well, definitely right now I'm doing a lot of strength and conditioning to make sure I get stronger and, for my next fights, I can definitely, settle in at the 25 division. We will see. I've talked to my manager. There's some things in the works that I can't really talk about yet, but I'm pretty excited. I think it's, a step towards back to getting to fighting, at the top and, proving that, I still belong to be fighting with the best in the world. So, once that comes out, I'm sure you guys will find out. But I'm really excited. All I'm doing right now is just making sure that, I'm training and I'm making the right moves and decisions and, having the right people around me. That is something huge that like, sometimes it's hard, like dealing with situations when you're at this level because you don't really know whether people will have your back or not, if they're good intentions or not. This game's like, it's pretty crazy. Like, and so since I've had to travel and try and train with different people and stuff. So, I think that the best thing is to making sure that I have a small group of people that I can trust and can help me make the right decisions from now on, because I swear to God, like before, like I said, I felt like I wasn't doing the best things for myself because I just had an ego and I'm just always like down to, do whatever and try to fight. So, definitely gonna be a lot smarter now and, something I have to learn the hard way because when you're young, you're just like, I'm ready to fight whoever, whenever, at any time, And there's not that many fighters that can do that. I know that there are a lot of badasses, but you can't be like that all the time, So, I'm pretty stoked for what's coming, and I can't wait till you guys find out what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And,
Same.
we've mentioned a few times, you kind of talked about, when the ego of fighters can kind of come into play. But, I think a lot of people sometimes forget or overlook that, oftentimes coaches can have egos too. People forget a lot of them are, either fighters or they're martial artists themselves. And, obviously the traditional phrase is, don't have an ego. But the reality is that everybody has a little bit of an ego in that room. And so, I'm curious for you as a fighter, how do you sort of navigate or deal with when, a coach does have a bit of an ego and maybe you disagree about an approach or what, whether you should add something to your game or not. So, I'm just curious as a fighter how you navigate that.
Honestly, like that is something for sure that I've dealt with a lot. Hence why I honestly moved a lot of times since I left Team Alpha Male. I would say that at Team Alpha Male, it was awesome. It was a great, and I feel blessed that that's where I started. And during the era that was there with like Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw, Joe Benavidez, Chad Mendes, it was by far one of like the best times of my life that I've ever had training. But I would say with like coaching, yeah, eventually, egos do get in the way and, things start falling apart. And that's ultimately also why I ended up leaving Team Alpha Male because the coaches, were having issues. And so I kind of like felt like it was weird. It always feels like it feels like your parents are getting divorced when you have coaches like fighting because it feels
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
kind of come across that. I've trained in Vegas. I trained at Extreme Couture. I train at Syndicate. Every coach is different. Luckily now I feel like I've finally found a good head coach, which is Alex Press, who's the ex flyweight champion, the UFC. And it's just I needed to find someone who like thought like me and is also like more of a wrestler and stuff like that, and doesn't have an ego as far as like it's not going to get upset if I go train with other people. But he thinks he's going to advise me. If there's something I can't teach you, I want you to make sure that you're going over here and getting what you're done. Because a lot of times that does happen. Sometimes
Yeah.
like coaches don't see eye to eye. Sometimes I'll be training with one coach and a different coach, and then they don't really train with each other throughout like the camp because they're from a different gym, and then they don't like meet each other until it's the actual fight week. And then it's like weird, and so that's something I've definitely dealt with a lot in the past, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good when you're not all on the same page because it does kind of give you a little bit doubt in what you're doing if the coaches aren't like really getting along or on the same page. So I feel like I kind of have that figured out now. It took me a long time to do that, but it's important. I was also vocal too, so it's not like, oh, okay, they cause problems and I just leave. But I always like try to like figure it out. I think it's important to stand up for yourself and to find the right coaches that fit you. Sometimes we get stuck on this, oh, you have to be loyal, you have to be loyal. I was like, well, yeah, but they also have to have the best interest in you. It's like not just about them, it's not about, because I've seen some coaches that all they want to do is just like, oh, I just want all the fighters to, and I don't want them to go train anywhere else. But you don't really have time to just train all the fighters. Like you're gonna have some that you're gonna really be able to give them time, and the rest are not gonna be able to get that time. So as a coach, you have to be unselfish in that sense. And I feel like the best coaches usually only have a handful of fighters. They don't have a million fighters. And so sometimes you got to be careful with that too. When especially if you're an up and comer and you want to go to a big gym, that's great for growth, and you're gonna have like the training partners and stuff that train at the high level, but you might have a difficult time getting attention from the coaches because of course they're going to be giving their attention to just the top level fighters, and so so you have to really, I think that is huge, and you have to always make sure that you feel like they have your back. So when you're in the cage, you should feel like, if the other team jumps in, you better hope your coaches are jumping in too. That's the kind of thing that you want.
Yeah, definitely. Cynthia, last one from me today. Is there, like you mentioned it a little bit earlier, that you do want to get back to the highest level in the sport, and I guess my question for you was, is there an immediate focus on getting back to the UFC? Like obviously you were scheduled to compete earlier this year. Unfortunate with the weight miss, but you've corrected a lot of those things. So is that the focus at the moment, to get back to the UFC, or is it just enjoying the process en route to a major organization?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I feel like with the UFC, it's always possible, like if they do short notice, but I feel like when you usually want to make a case for it, it doesn't take just one win, and so I feel like I would definitely take me a little bit longer, but the door is still there if I were to get like a short notice or something like that. But I'm not sure, if that's something they would look to doing to looking forward to doing. Just because also like they've been really like fast to like cut people, lately.
Mm,
Like I've
Mm,
noticed that, especially because of the
mm,
contenders. So
yeah.
they're always
yeah.
cutting a lot of fighters and stuff. So I feel like for me, I would have to prove myself a little bit more with like making weight consistently because I know that that's something they frown upon. They don't, they just want you to make the weight. You got to make the weight and you got to win. At the end they're really cutthroat. So, um, but if like I said, that's something I've my dream was to get into UFC and finish there. I wanted to retire in the UFC, so that's never out of the question. But I definitely looking forward to taking the next big step into a big organization, and just making sure that I'm still up there fighting the best in the world, and getting paid most importantly because I've been fighting the best in the world for the last 7 years, and I would hate to just keep fighting at a lower level show and not making any money. So my biggest goal is to get back into a big organization and making money.
Yeah, definitely. And
Definitely.
Cynthia, last question for me. When fighters, reach a point of challenge or sort of obstacles in their career, whether it is, making weight or, taking a few losses, they're sort of forced to reinvent themselves a little bit, whether it's, stylistically changing up as a fighter, whether it's, changing something in their training, their recovery, whatever it is. And I'm curious, did you sort of have to reinvent yourself a little bit, when you did reach sort of, some of those obstacles in your career? Or, for you, was it sort of more about, I guess, staying the course and just sort of grinding through it? Did you kind of have to reinvent anything?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's a lot of growth that comes from like losing and even more so when it happens multiple times. Like I would say I feel like most of the people, if it was anybody else that has gone through what I've gone through in the last 4 years and not won a single fight and just keep trying and trying and trying, like probably most people would quit. I'm
Mm.
37 years old. So I don't know how many more years left I have. So I feel like, I was just like, man, like if I get cut from the UFC, like what do I really have, like all these doubts start setting into your mind and stuff, and it becomes harder and harder to get motivated. So that's not an issue that I really had before because I was winning everything, so I would always be motivated after my fights. I would continue. I never really thought about ever I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd be like in such a huge losing streak. I was in a fight losing streak, and the last time I'd won a fight before Lisa was 4 years prior to that. So it was it's been really hard, but it's there's something about like really hitting that rock bottom in your career and building yourself up and digging back up, because everybody definitely, I felt like they started writing me off. All the people that kept boasting about me when I got into UFC are nowhere to be found now, like found now. And like I feel like there's a lot of people that have definitely counted me out. And you can kind of feel the energy a little bit. Maybe, it could also just be something in my head, but I feel like it definitely feels different. It feels different walking into these like to these rooms sometimes with different fighters. Like I feel like it's not the same. So it does it. I did have to like really just kind of dig deep through these like dark places, because
Mm.
mentally for sure I struggled a lot, and I know a lot of us struggled, like the depression and just like I spent so many years away from my family, and there was times where after these losses I would just like isolate myself and be in a really really dark place, and like I felt like a lot of people didn't really know about it because you're not really supposed to talk about it because or whatever. But that's been like one of the biggest hugest things, like about like being in failing and just rising. There's something so much powerful about that, and like it's like made me into such a more stronger person. I'm
Mm.
definitely more humble, and like I just have more gratitude for being able to be in the sport. Sometimes when you get in, you think you're not going to fall down on your face, and but you can lose anything at any given time, so you have to appreciate it,
Mm.
and just so I love that about, setbacks, as hard as they are, there's some great growth that comes from it. And like, I'm ready for it. And I'm very appreciative. And like, I have so much more fight left in me. And like, it shows time and time, years after years, like the age gap for fighting is getting higher. Like, it's
Mm.
awesome. So I'm
Yeah.
super motivated, and I feel like my experience is going to play, a huge game in my future. And like, I can't wait. And so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Cynthia, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, for both Josh and myself, as people that would always tune in to watch you fight, knowing that, no matter what, you're going to bring it and that fight week is always going to be entertaining with you. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on this morning. Congratulations again on that latest big win. Enjoy a little bit of time off, a little bit of recovery. We will definitely look forward to that exciting news that you kind of teased earlier. Definitely excited to see what that is. And we'd love to talk to you again in future.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Cynthia.
Thank you, Cynthia.